Hello, my name is Jonathan Banner. I'm the Technical Director of tmXsuite Limited, and the purpose of this video is to briefly demonstrate cash flow working within tmXsuite. Cash flow can be reported globally, per group company, or per project or multiple projects. For this example, I'm going to show it working with multiple projects. Those projects are going to be P001, P002, P003 and P004. They are basically exactly the same project in contract value of 200,000, budget of 180,400, and each have the same budget elements. But what I want to show is how cash flow changes through the life cycle of a project. So for project 001 is basically the first step of the project. I've created my budgets, my items I've assigned, and I have yet to make any commitments. Project 2 is showing me 60,000 commitments, and project 3 I'm going to invoice some purchase orders, and project 4 I'm going to pay some invoices. Right. So the first thing we need to know is what is cash flow and how does it work within tmXsuite. Well, tmXsuite works within the boundaries of saying cash flow is modeled. So each budget element will have a modeled cash flow. So if I quickly go into this project P001 and I find a budget element that has an amount of money, a decent amount of money assigned, so I know I'm going to spend this 50,000. And I look in the cash flow tab and I can see here we've got our model for vessels. And when I say model, basically it's a model that allows us to pick cash flow points. So these are points within the project that I'm going to say, right, I'm going to expect money to go out there, and this amount of money to go out there, and this amount of money to go out there. So what we do here, we say we're having 4 cash flow points, and then we're going to base those points on a percentage complete. It's over here, and that percentage complete is only based on time, and that's start date to end date. It's nothing to do with I've bought this many items, so I've only got 3 to do, so therefore we're X amount down the project. This is purely the percentage between start date and end date. So for this vessel's budget element, we're expecting to pay 20% of this £50,000 at 20% of the project. We'd be expecting to pay another 20% of the items at 30% of the project, which would be around November. If my start date was August and my end date was February, which I better just check it is. Let's quickly go to my project header. Start date August the 1st, end date February. So I'll go back to my demonstration. So I'd expect 30% would be around November. Around November. So then I've got 40% of the budget to be spent at 70% of the project completion, and 20% at 90% of the project. Hopefully this will become a bit more clear when we actually look at the numbers. But that's the message I want to get across here, is we can set that up per budget element. So we can assign our cash model differently per budget element, or if we choose, we can use the company default cash flow model. In this instance, I've set my own cash flow models for most of the budget elements, and I'll quickly describe that. Let's have a look. Let's go to site and expenses, freight and packaging. What I have done here is I have one cash flow period. Because I know the freight and packaging is going to happen right at the end of the project. It's going to be the last thing I do, delivering the product. I've said I want 100% of this budget to be planned to be placed right at the end of the project, i.e. 100% completion. So my cash flow would put that budget right at the end of my cash flow. Another example would be, let's have a look, who have we got here? So let's do some fabrication, subcontracted services fabrication. Now what I've said here is actually I'm only going to get fabrication to come in. That's about 50% of the project. After I've bought a lot of my items, I can get the fabricators in and spend some money there. So what I'm actually going to do is only start spending money at 50% of the project. And then for each 10% of the project, I'm going to be spending another 20% of my budget. Right, so every budget element on there will be included when I do my cash flow report. Whether I've modeled them or used the default model, they will be recorded. When my cash flow is getting calculated, it's not just based on my incomes, my outgoings are not just based on the percentage completion date. They also have to take into account the default payment days. So off my default payment terms, which would be say net 30, net 60 or net 7, I would be adding that number of days to my percentage completion, which would give me my true planned date that money is going to leave the building to pay for my purchases. And likewise, my planned income, I will have a scheduled date, and then I would have to anticipate by adding my, let's have a look, by adding my default customer invoicing payment days. So in this instance, for my income, I'll be adding another 30 days from the invoice date. Right, let's have a look at the actual data. Right, here we see the cash flow report for our 4 projects. I'm just going to concentrate at one at a time. In here we can see it's separated into monthly periods, and it's also showing a line for ins, income, or outs, expenditure. We can see here that the totals all match up to our ins, 200,000 contract level, and our outs, the 180,400 budget. Because we've had no expenditure here yet, they match exactly. Now ins, we've got an income event in here in October for £20,000. If we go to our associated project and have a look at our schedule, we can see that £20,000 was actually planned on August the 1st. Now, as you may or may not be aware, I am doing this video in September, so that's past August. So the way the cash flow works now, it says, right, your invoice will not be invoiced in August the 1st. The earliest it can be done is today's date. So that would move it to September's cash flow period. However, we now have to add the anticipated or the default payment terms. In this instance, they are 30 days for customer invoicing. So we'd add our 30 days to today's date, and we would get the middle of October, 20,000 in the middle of October. So if we check the rest of our schedules for this project, we can see we've got one in October, which out of 30 days would be November, December, at 30 days, which would give us December 31st, which is still in December, and February, add another 30 days, we've got March. So if we check our cash flow, yes, we've got 60,000 in November, 60,000 in December, and 60,000 in March, equaling 200,000. For our outs, we can see here I modelled most of my big ticket items exactly the same. So for all my purchasing items, take this one for example, I have modelled it to be 20, 20, 40 and 20 at the 20, 30, 70 and 90% completion stages. So I can see yes, 20, 30, 70, 90. Well, the other sections are based from non-purchasing budget elements, which are modelled slightly differently. So that's project 1. So that we can see ins versus outs, planned expenditure, planned income, everything makes sense. 2, what I have done is I have spent £60,000 worth of purchase orders. So I've committed £60,000. Each purchase order, if I go into purchase order, has been set to anticipated delivery of September the 25th. I have set the payment terms to a net 7 from the invoice date. So the way our calculation will work now is I'm going to add 7 days to my anticipated delivery date to get my best guess of when the money will be leaving our accounts, and the best guess to say, okay, this is what my cash flow this is when my money will go out in this cash flow report, so I can make the appropriate changes for my project. So if we go and have a look at the report and have a look at project 2, I can see that I've now got £80,080 in October. Right. Because I've placed £60,000, 20% of that £60,000, i.e. £12,000, would have been already planned for in October, which is so £12,000 of that £32,000 was for the expenditure I'm now making. So that leaves what I'd be expecting to see here is £48,000 higher in October for project 2 than October for project 1. So just to clarify, that's 20% of 60,000, which is modelled for October. So that's 12,000. Take away the 60,000, 48,000. 48,000 plus 32,080 equals 80,080, which is correct. So I'm now, because my purchase orders have got an anticipated delivery of September the 25th, I add 7 days to them. That brings us to October. So I've now got £60,000 committed expenditure in October, of which I'm expecting the money to go out in October. So the money for that £60,000 has been taken from my model in September. It's taken from the big ticket item models basically. So that's taken some from December and also taken some from February. Project 3, what I have done is we are now invoicing these purchase orders. But just to show the changes, however, what I've done is I have invoiced £30,000 of the purchase orders early, and I've invoiced the other 30,000 as anticipated. So if I have a look at this particular project, so my plan date was 25th, and was anticipated delivery date of September the 25th. If I have a look at my invoice, I can see that the invoice came in on September the 9th. I've got a net 7 days from invoice date as my payment terms. So actually this particular invoice will be moved to September. And I've done that for two of the purchase orders, this one and that one. So there'll be £30,000 in September. And if I have a look at this one, which had again the anticipated delivery date of September 25th, I'm going to have a look at my invoice. I can see that the invoice actually came in on the 29th of December. Add net 7 puts me into October. So I'll have 30,000 in September and 30,000 in October of my commitments. So come out of here, excuse me, and likewise, and as you can see here, in my P003 model, I can see 30,000 of that 80,000 has gone to September. So as you can see, the 20,000 has gone up to 50,000, and my 80,000 expenditure has gone down to actually show 50,000. Again, I can see for these projects I've got some serious issues regarding cash flow, as I've now purchased these earlier. But my final demonstration, I'm going to now mark these invoices. These invoices have now been paid, but they've all been paid early. So look at this one. This one was previously, this was invoiced in September 9th, so it was previously in October. However, the payment date has come in as September 27th. So that in our cash flow should put this 20,000 back into September. And as I say, I've done that with all the invoices, so I'm expecting my combined commitment to expenditure of 60,000 to go straight back into September. And as you can see here, my 80,000 from 80,000 was planned in project 2 as my purchase orders not invoiced and was planned to go out in October. I've now paid early, so actually they've gone out in September, which leaves me with a bit of a cash flow issue in September, but less of a cash flow issue in October. So 60,000 has basically gone from here, October, directly to September. So that shows me the outs. However, the other difference within these projects here is I can see in project 1 I've got an income event of October. However, in project 2, 3 and 4 I can see a £20,000 income event that happened in September. Now what I can do here is, if I look at one of my projects, 2, 3 or 4, let's go to 2. And have a look at my schedule, I can see that actually this was invoiced in August, August the 1st. So I was actually invoiced it on my plan date. So that is actually committed. So I invoiced it August the 1st. The payment is due at the end of August, but has yet to be paid. So the nearest cash flow event I can put this on is today, i.e. September. So if we go back to our event, I can see the first one where it was planned has gone to October. For the projects where I've actually invoiced, the planned date of income coming in is today, September. If I go back to project 4, now I've actually invoiced and paid my invoices. I have a dilemma where I actually have serious cash flow issues for September and October. What I might try and do is see if I can move my November cash flow event to happen in October. So if I go to my project, I'm going to go back to project 4. What I will do is go to my schedule, and I can see currently I've got October the 18th as my plan date, which means another 30 days for my payment date. It's taking me to November. Let's see if I can move that one. Let's move that one to the beginning of September, which will automatically, for the cash flow event, move that to today, add another 30 days. But what we'll do is, if I run the cash flow report again, I'm expecting that 60,000 to come into October. So okay, I want to run all of those projects, please. Just gathering the data. Right, project 4. I can see my income event now has came in. It's moved to October, which means I've now got £39,000 cash flow positive in October, which means I can deal with the rest of the project. It's not such a hit anymore. That is basically how it works. Anyway, thank you for listening. I hope this helps. Any questions, please give me a shout, or email me on jonathan.banner@tourmatrix.com. And yes, I hope this has been useful. Thank you.